Yeah.
It's gonna automatically do the notes.
Program. And I believe that they just.
He's like, yeah, go down to the end of this road, take a right.
Yes, thank you to go.
Okay.
Hey, Mark.
That kind of a day.
Hey.
So I did add these pages. I put just to the presentation of it are in there. So, yeah, brand new stuff last night that came in, this list. So I haven't really had a chance to dig into them yet. Very new. Yes.
Twenty 2021. Right now, yes, as far as I know, it's 2025.
That's good. He's a surgeon. He's all of that. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are things we're talking about where. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not default.
And that's at the end. They're at the end of this.
Yeah.
They're before the project newsletter. Okay. So, yeah, there's one for pavements and one for bridges. So that was.
Yeah.
I went through and highlighted everything that's we wanted. Yeah. There are a few more projects.
Yeah.
Driveway.
So.
No.
There, really.
Jason.
Oh, they. What are you gonna put down? Yeah.
No, she should be. Yeah. How are you doing that?
I'm all right, how are you? Yeah. Get through all this.
Thank you. And thank you for being chairman.
I'm sure you're working.
Hoping to figure out.
You guys do all the work. No. People put this together and I keep updating it every day.
Sure, we love to come in. Don't lose all of our photos.
Yes.
That's the most important.
That's right.
Empty my pockets here.
Hurry up and stop.
I
We all set? All right, good morning, everyone. I think we'll get started. Welcome to the August meeting of the Technical Advisory Committee of the MPO. I'll call the meeting to order. The first item that we've got is public comment on agenda items. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on any items that are on today's agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. The minutes of the May 10th Technical Advisory Committee meeting, hopefully everybody's had a chance to review those. I would accept a motion to approve those minutes. Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussions or comments on the minutes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Next is the 2023 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program. I'll turn it over to Brandon Leach from Central Office.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yep.
All
we
right,
got-
perfect. All right, thank you. So just looking over the charts, if you had a chance to do so before the meeting, since the June coordinating committee meeting, there were just 4 administrative actions to the 2023 Erie Highway Bridge tip with no amendments. Actions 1 and 2 involved a right-of-way phase increase for the Niemeyer Road Bridge project in federal fiscal year 2023 to cover a rebid. And we won't be talking about today, but the construction cost increase is also subject to an increase. Well, the construction phase is subject to an increase, which is going through central office approval right now as well. So that's why we won't be seeing any charts for that at the moment. Administrative actions 3 and 4 involve a fund swap to add local funds to the Union LaBeouf Bridge project, construction phase in federal fiscal years 25 and 26. This was done to meet the 5% match requirement for the project of local funds, and the difference with the federal funds was then removed and returned to the Erie local bridge line item. I can pause now for questions on those if you'd like, or I can also go on to the 6 informational items if you'd like.
Does anybody have any questions about these items?
Which one's the Union LaBeouf Bridge?
Did you hear that, Brandon?
Which one is it? Like, you mean, it should
That
be
was-
the last 2 actions.
Yeah, I'm trying to envision or vision where it's at.
I'll picture where it's at.
It's on Union LaBeouf Road, which is on the border of the 2 townships. It's a timber bridge underneath. I think it's over 70 feet long. So actually our subcommittee, our local bridge subcommittee voted to give it tip funds.
Okay.
To replace that bridge.
It's right off Route 6. There's a church there on the corner. You can see the bridge from Route 6. There's a big farm and white barn on the other side. And it's a back way into Union City, so it is a heavily traveled road.
Gotcha.
And it's owned by both townships,
Okay.
down the middle.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Thanks. You can go ahead, Brandon.
Okay, so I'll move on to the informational items. There were 6 administrative actions that were committed as informational items that involved the interstate or statewide TIP program. So these were done independent of my purview, but within our statewide interstate section. The first one is and these were all actions, none of them were amendments requiring a vote. So the first one was a action to defer federal TAP funds from the Union City Borough TASA Project 2022 from federal fiscal year 2024 to 2025 to match the estimated let date. Administrative action number 2 was to defer state 185 funds from the I-79 Bridges over Conrail Railroad project from federal fiscal year 2023 to 2025. Administrative action number 3 was to add federal NHPP funds to the I-90 milepost 39 to 46 preservation project. This was done in federal fiscal year 2023 to cover accrued unbilled costs. Similarly, these are all similar actions in 4 and 5, also to add federal HSIP set-aside funds to the construction phase of the 12th Street Corridor Signals Project. This was adding this phase to the tip in federal fiscal year 2023. And action number 5 is adding federal HSIP set-aside funds to the construction phase of SR 3006, which is from SR 90 to SR 18 in federal fiscal year 2023. And the last administrative action is to cash flow the federal rail RRX or railroad funds from the Bayfront Parkway RRX project from fiscal years 24 and 25 out to 2027. And I'll take any questions for those if there are any at this time.
The railroad project. Can you just give us a minute of the points of that? What that development is part of the parkway? It's been a long time since we reviewed that.
Mm-hmm. I'll defer to the district on this one since they'll have more project specific details.
Do you know? I don't know which.
I don't remember which crossings they were, but it's basically to fund upgrades on crossings along the Bayfront in the city.
Okay.
Is this 130 money?
Yes.
Section 130.
Yeah.
Yeah, so section 130 money is rail safety money that is managed at the central office level, and all districts in the state are able to access that money for rail crossings. So in conjunction with the Bayfront Parkway project, we looked at some of those crossings and looked at different improvements that could be made. Now, not, I guess I'd say the fate of those crossings at this point is not 100% known. I didn't look at this item and I can't see it on the screen, so I don't know the details of what's being moved and why, but that's what that money is for.
Another question, is that rail line that goes across 6th Street and then Holland, is that active?
Yeah.
Does it go through? Or does it end at State Street?
You're talking over kind of on the east side, parallel
Yeah,
to
east side,
the parkway,
Over,
right?
the Bayfront, and then, or
Right.
not the Bayfront, but the other one,
Yeah,
right
right,
there at that intersection.
right. Yeah, as far as I know, it's active. I don't know if anybody else knows more. I don't know,
It
Leanne.
doesn't go anywhere.
At 600.
Yeah,
They still use it.
yeah.
Okay, just was curious.
Yeah, I mean, it branches off a couple places. One goes over to Erie Coke, one goes up to,
Okay,
the port, and then the other piece kind of follows the parkway where, we'll be impacting some of that with our project.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions on the informational items for Brandon? All right, well, thank you, Brandon. We appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Next, number 5 on the agenda is a Bayfront Central Corridor multimodal project update. I'm going to turn it over to Brian and his team.
Thanks, Matt. I don't know if everybody has heard, we opened bids on July 27th, so Thursday of week before last. And the bids were high. We got 2 bids. It's not all public knowledge, so again, I don't know what some folks might know about it or not know about it. The bids came in higher than anticipated, significantly. So I can share that the apparent low bidder, and where we are right now, is in pre-award status. So when bids are opened, we are, then in the position of verifying and certifying the bids, and then if they're over, we're making the decision of whether or not to move forward and award the project and accept the bids or to re-advertise. So what we're here to talk about in the estimate, I'll give you rough numbers and we have the exact, but I'll round to the nearest million for everybody's information in the room here. Our estimate was 74 million before bids were open. The apparent low bid was about 112 million. So that's a 51%. It's 51. The lowest bid was 51% higher, roughly, than the estimate. Obviously, that was a shock to us, and you know it demands a lot of conversation. So the difference between those two numbers is $38 million. To take a step back, I guess, and look at the bigger picture. Of course, this is what we do, is put out heavy construction projects. It's, you know, probably anywhere from 60 to 80 projects a year in District 1 alone, year after year. We're measured on our ability to estimate accurately. So of those projects, I can tell you in the last state fiscal year, if you compared our estimates to the low bids across the board, we're within less than 1% of those numbers. So our estimates are overall, you know, averaged over the course of a year within 1% of the bids we're seeing. You know, if you're doing our standard bread and butter are bridge projects and paving projects. So those we have like unit item price histories on. And that's why it's, I think, easy, why our system works. With being within 1% to us kind of validates that our process works. How an estimate is developed is you've got a design team, whether those are PennDOT folks or a consultant. In this case with the Parkway, it was a consultant. They put together an estimate. We had peer reviews on that estimate. We had also central office review of that estimate, and we at the district reviewed the estimate. So it's not one person. There's probably at least 20, if not more, professionals who this is what they do day to day that looked over that estimate and eventually came to a general consensus. There were a couple people who thought that it should be higher than 74 million, only by a couple $1 million. So nobody was was foreseeing, I guess, where the bids would come in. You know, like I said, the initial reaction was was shock and disappointment. And I guess, you know, one of the things is what we do is review the bids, review our estimates versus the bids for each individual item, and look for anything that, you know, is concerning there. So what happened, what was missed. If I could generalize why the difference is so great, I would say that our estimate did not accurately reflect the nature of the project, which is it's an outlier project. It's extremely unique. It's complex, and it involves major relocations of utilities in a dense urban setting, and complicated phasing of traffic in order to keep the Bayfront Parkway open for as long as possible during construction. That all costs money. Anytime, even if we have a rural bridge on a back road, if we have to make the decision of whether we're going to build it half width and keep one lane open throughout the duration versus shutting the road down and detouring traffic, that's a cost difference. You pay for that. So you pay to have, you know, the commuters and users of that road to keep access to it. Bayfront Parkway, I don't know what the latest traffic numbers are, but we're at 25,000 or more, I would say, vehicles per day. You've got a major hospital right there at one of the main intersections that this project is sort of based around, not to mention all of the businesses and other organizations that are there. So those are some of the complexities. And one other thing that wasn't adequately accounted for in the estimate was the length of the project. So it's a 3+ year construction project. If you're a contractor, your bids are generally based on risk. So if I'm a contractor and I know I'm going to pave a road this season, I'm going to get prices on the items of work, and you're going to have a pretty high level of comfort of what your prices are going to be in the market that we have right now. When you have a complex project that's going to take 3 or 4 years to build, they don't have that same level of certainty. Risk goes up, and with risk going up, the price goes up. So, all that to say, there have been other projects similar. There's a cap in Philly, if people watch that, and I don't have the exact numbers, but the estimate was off compared to the low bids in a similar magnitude. Okay, so I want to say that was estimated around 200 million, and it came in around 300 million. As far as our review of the bids, what we do is we look at it, and similar to what we did on Nehemiah Road, we look at how did those individual unit item bids come in, and would there be any benefit to changing anything and re-advertising the project. That's really the decision to make. And after analysis of those bids, where we stand right now is that we don't think that would be beneficial to re-advertise it. We have a lot of federal money on this project, including the $21 million build grant, where the clock is ticking on that money. And we just didn't see, there was no evidence to lead us to believe that re-advertising would produce lower bids. There are some cases where that seems to show to be true, and Nehemiah is an example where we did it and it worked. There have been other projects in District 1 and especially throughout the state where you think you might have a chance of getting lower bids if you re-advertise and tweak some things, and then you end up getting higher bids than you did the first time. That has happened probably to every district. I know it happened to us not long ago. So that's kind of what the item is that we wanted to talk about. Now, probably everybody's question would be, if you're going to accept bids, where would that money come from? So like I said, the difference in bid versus estimate was 38 million. When you add in the need for construction inspection for that larger cost, which is a percentage that we always use for big projects like that, which is 8%, along with some of the pieces. So this part's a little bit confusing, but as we're approaching the point where we advertise the project, we're refining our estimate. At some point, the amount of money funded on the tip and authorized by FHWA needs to be set in stone, but we're still able to tweak our estimate a little bit in the last weeks of the advertisement. So there was a little bit of a gap there at the moment that bids were open to begin with, and now we've got these higher bids. So we can give anybody more detail that they want on that, but the need that we need for the project is about $45 million right now, if we want to accept these bids. So a meeting, this decision isn't made at the district level alone. I had a meeting with Executive Deputy Secretary Moon Sirianni, Deputy Secretary Mike Riebert, and Deputy Secretary of Planning Larry Shiflett, and talked about potential funding sources. Central office, like they have throughout this whole project, have offered to help significantly, and by that I mean pretty much cover the entire difference, or the majority of it. So as far as, just kind of a recap of funds that have come from elsewhere to the Erie tip for this project, I have roughly 26 million of discretionary, and this is not new money, this is old money. 26 million of discretionary funds from central office and multimodal funds combined. That's 26 million, a $21 million federal build grant, and $30 million of additional discretionary money. So it's a large amount. And now what we're talking about of the 45 million, they believe they have a source for 37 million of that, okay? Which is available, and they're willing to partner with. Everybody agreed, that basically we had a bad estimate, and it is the bottom line. I think it, like I said, initial reaction for me was that's too much. We can't pay it, but the bottom line becomes your estimate is what it is. And when you have outlier projects like this, it's very difficult because you have no history for for many of these types of things. So central office has offered roughly 37 million. They're still verifying some of the details on that, so that number could change. Some of that is carbon reduction money from their statewide line item, so that's new money from the bill IIJA program that, like I said, they have available to put towards this project, and we think it's a great fit. It makes sense to use that money. Some of the other pots include state funds and federal safety funds that we're looking at. So the remainder between what's needed and what they think they can provide, Courtney has a plan sort of for how that will look on the Erie tip. And, we do think, again, like we've talked about in the past, August redistribution is when the states have access to funding authority from the federal government that's available from other states. Pennsylvania has made out very well on that in the past. We expect that to almost double in the near future, in the years to come. I think, we're very comfortable with that money being covered through August redistribution. Does anybody have any, and Courtney can fill in details if I miss, but does anybody have any questions or comments on any of that?
This money, this is all for the Bayfront Highway?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a couple questions. Your shortfall is gonna be about $8 million,
Right.
in the end.
Right.
Are there cost savings in a project over the period of the project? I mean, your bid 120 million, say it comes in at 105,
Mhm.
you regulate that?
Yes, there can be, at times there are savings. And at times something comes up unforeseen and
Well, yeah,
additional.
tendency.
Yeah,
The money from the state, that is free and clear, basically. I mean, are there any restrictions on that?
it is, there's no restrictions on it. I mean, it's either of the category that can be used towards bridges or general highway use, so that's how.
Okay,
There's two different pots there, but it all works with our project.
thank you.
Yeah. Any others?
So Brian, just to confirm,
Yeah.
the carbon reduction program funds are since they're from the statewide line item, are they impacting the carbon reduction funds that we would receive as an Erie MPO, or is it completely separate?
Completely separate.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
The 21 million that's coming from central office from statewide was funds that they had set aside for the possibility of putting on projects, looking at it statewide after they had given the money to all of the planning partners.
Okay, great.
Now, so we are asking for a concurrent e-ballot to be sent out. That's what we're asking today, is for permission to do an e-ballot. So that we can have a vote before the coordinating committee next September, in September, because we need to be able to keep the project moving. And so our plan for it going out is showing the $37 million coming from central office and an additional 8 coming from the regional tip. That coming from the majority of those funds is coming from 25 and 26. So we are not looking at moving any funding from any project in this amendment and the vote that we're asking for. We're going to be taking it from line items only in the last 2 years of the tip. We're leaving the carbon reduction funds that Erie received for 23 and 24 for other projects. They won't be going towards the Bayfront. And we're going to be looking at a combination of using off of the line items additional carbon reduction funds from 25 and 26, the safety funds from 25 and 26, and then paving and bridge fund. All of it will be federal funds coming from the regional tip. They will not be state funds, which then allows us to potentially get August redistributions over the next 2 and carrying on until then the 25 tip. for them to be able to help us out with those funds and give us additional federal funds from the statewide August redistribution to fund that, or if it was state funds, that would not be an option, which is why we're doing it the way we're doing it. So we are asking, like I said, for permission to do an e-ballot. Wanted to make sure there wasn't any questions or anything before we sent that out, which is why we wanted to present today. And it will be, we're doing what is considered a PMC item. So it's a program management committee, yeah, action that's going down through central office that they have to vote in favor of what we're proposing, as well as the MPO voting members voting. So they will be tied together. We're going to do it concurrently. The only other thing I wanted to let everybody know is the vote that we're sending out will show us using regional safety money. Central office is working to try to find statewide safety money to give us on the project. So right now we are showing $4 million of regional safety money going towards the project. The potential of part of that to all of that being funded statewide is an option. So our 8 million will go down closer to 5.
Can we get just a 1 minute review of, if you do accept the bid, kind of a quick timeline of when the shovels get around?
Yes, so normally the notice to proceed is 6 weeks on a project that is done this way. It would be 6 weeks from the time we open bids. So the 27th was the time that we open bid. It should go six weeks, and then the contractor can start purchasing and doing everything that they need to do in order to start the project. They can start procurement, and they can start some of the work. The fact that we need to cover that difference is delaying that by a couple of weeks, which is why time is kind of the essence. We'd like to get them started in September, if at all possible. And I believe that the intent is to start seeing utility relocations this year. So the utility work hopefully will be started this fall. You will start to see utilities being moved in the area, and then more project-specific work being done in the spring. And it gives them between now and next spring to procure some of the stuff that they need. And then next year, they're gonna start on walls. I think, if I remember the construction schedule, next year, they're gonna start working on the retaining walls and all of that stuff.
That's roundabout.
Yeah, the first of the 2 roundabouts, and then it'll move forward and be finished in 27.
And we'll keep everybody updated. Like, that's all based on the design consultant's pre-bid construction schedule. So a contractor can always come in and have a completely different vision, as long as we can still meet the community needs of keeping the road open and stuff. We'll negotiate that.
Now, sorry for all the questions, but this is a huge project.
Yeah.
What are you estimating, as far as traffic flow during that period of time? Are you gonna have full stops, or is it gonna be detours? Is it gonna be a total time period, or is it gonna be intermittent?
It will vary. It'll be very intermittent, and it will fluctuate throughout the life of the project. So we did everything we could to minimize full closures of the parkway itself. I can't remember, and I don't want to give a wrong guess, but there are brief times where everything will need to be shut down. For example, for a contractor to set beams of the bridge carrying State Street over the parkway, that will be a full shutdown. Construction of the roundabouts and most of the rest of the project can happen, like I mentioned earlier, half width sort of. So there will be, and it won't be 1 lane, it'll be two lanes open just under a construction, setting. So that's the majority of it. And then there will be a time, if it goes according to the way we saw it going, being constructed, where State Street Bridge over the parkway will be complete, but the ramp serving it won't be built yet. So that could be almost a full construction season potentially, where State Street will be able to access the water and the new road that the port built and things like that. But Bayfront Parkway traffic will not be able to access State Street until those ramps are completed.
Thank you.
I did want to address something Mark just pointed out to me. Our newsletter shows the Bayfront Parkway project total program cost of 104 million. Just to clarify, that is all phases. So when I talk about us having only had roughly 74 million for construction, that's a part of that. Other phases are included in the 104, like design, utility relocations, right away. Right away was a significant cost. Design was a significant cost.
Are you saying that these other projects that are listed will not be impacted?
At this point in time, that is what we are proposing.
Right.
So after the bid came in, they started having conversations about what central office thought that they could be able to contribute. And we went to the drawing board and looked at what we luckily had in 25 and 26 on the current tip that we could put on now. So it becomes confusing, as it always does when we talk about it, because we are going to have a tip change between now and then. So the first thing we did was look at what we could give, what we could do on the 23 tip that would allow us to allocate the money to hopefully get the most back with August redistribution, as well as not delay any projects that we had in design. So that's what we did on 23. When you look at the eval that will come out, there's no other projects listed. We're not asking for money to be taken from them. So then after we sat down and did that, then we sat down and looked at the 25 tip that we're going to be presenting. And the tip that we are presenting today takes into account the ask of the Bayfront. So what you see in the 25 draft tip, the projects that those dates or that year, I did it a little bit different for everybody. Instead of talking about project total costs, making it confusing, I just showed the year we're looking at starting design, the year we're planning on starting construction, as it is now. And we laid all of that out so that you will see, if you vote yes on that, this is where those projects will go. And as far as I can tell you, right now, we have no project in 25 or 26 that is looking at a delay, and only one in 27. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
You knew that question was coming.
Yep. I was surprised it took that long to ask it, so. Yes.
So I guess two things I'll add to that I didn't mention or want to highlight. First is that, we had a conversation with our central office team. We are working on an effort to look at these types of outlier unique projects that tend to have extremely high bids compared to our estimates, or in other words, that we are not estimating
Is anyone else able to hear this?
I just heard that. That was it.
Okay, yeah. I think we
lot
got
of
cut off
feedback.
from the main meeting.
I agree.
Okay. Hmm,
How can we let them know this happened?
We might have to log out and log back in.
yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
They had a power outage at Summit is what I'm hearing.
Oh,
So they're trying to get back online now.
Okay, so they
Matt.
know we're not hearing anything. Okay,
Yeah, Matt just texted me.
gotcha.
So I'd say give him a minute or so.
Sure.
thank you.
Yep.
Can anyone hear?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we're here. I think we're still waiting for them to reconnect at Summit.
That's weird. I just sent Emily an email, so hopefully she sees it. We'll see if they can do anything.
I was just.
Does this matter? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You have to break them back out again. You just. It may not be. It's just whatever.
Okay, now it's- Oh, okay, okay. So, yeah. As long as it's on.
Okay, everybody, I'm gonna call us back to order.
Yes, we have to share. Make sure, yeah, maybe we should make sure, can anyone hear us online?
Yes,
Okay, good. All right, everyone, we're back to order.
Yes, we can hear.
Apologies to everybody online. We lost power here, so we're just getting back up, but we did pause the meeting, so you did not miss anything. Okay, we were at the stage where we were asking questions about the information that Brian just shared. Does anybody have any further questions about the Bayfront Corridor project?
I'll just finish what I was saying, I think, when it stopped, which is that we are looking at a statewide level, what we can do to do better with estimates on these highly unusual projects. And then the last thing I'd say is just that after a lot of consideration and discussion, you know, we think, do you accept when central office and Secretary Carroll are willing to support a project like this as much as they have already, and to find 37 million more when we need it, I don't think you turn that down. So, you know, we obviously highly support a positive vote in getting this moved forward.
I'd like to just congratulate the staff on the hard work. I know this was critical that they have done to get this backfilled and working with the state agencies. What it shows us is that we work well here. You know, because the state does react to how efficient you are. And even though you can't today do estimates on anything because the prices are fluctuating so much. I mean, you walk into McDonald's and they have a 49% increase on some of their products, and they tell you they're giving you a bargain. And with oil prices and, you know, everything. So I want our staff, you know, don't feel bad about the estimate. It's the climate we're living in right now. And fortunately, we have this backup from the state, which I think anytime the state is willing to do that, I think we need to cash in on it and work with it. But I want to give kudos to our staff on the working relationships that they have built.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, basically essentially pulling all this together and doing this in just a little over a week is pretty amazing. I'm sure there's a lot of work and after hours work that's reflected there that, you know, we do appreciate. As far as the technical advisory committee, obviously we don't have, you know, any real say in this. It's the coordinating committee, and I would leave that to the chair, Tim, you know, to decide about an e-ballot. I just wondered if there was any specific ask you had of this committee or anything you wanted from us.
Nope. Other than the request for an e-ballot so that we can keep it moving, that was the request.
And I would make the motion to distribute an e-ballot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is your call just as chairman of the coordinating committee.
I think so. And, you know, following up on the comments of Dave and Matt, I mean, I think Brian's done a great job just establishing that relationship with central office, that they're willing to keep the lines of communication open. So well done. Don't commit any higher. Right. Okay. All right.
I'll second it.
Okay, great.
All right, so then I assume that we'll expect an e-ballot to go out soon to the coordinating committee.
I'm hoping that you will see it within the next 24 to 48 hours.
Great.
Yeah, so
All
I have to
right.
make a couple changes.
Well, then we'll move on to the next item, which is discussion of the carbon reduction funds. There's 2023, 2024 administrative financial modifications. Emily, were you gonna handle those or?
I can start the conversation now that we know that the carbon reduction funds in 23 and 24 are not being used for the Bayfront. So we can keep all of those funds on the Erie MPO tip, which is great news. So just briefly, what you see that Courtney pulled together, there are two projects that are receiving the CRP, the carbon reduction funds in 2023 and 2024, which is the Zook Road project, as well as what's the other one?
The French Street bike.
And the French Street bike lane, yes. So those can still remain receiving those funds. And then potentially, we still have over $1 million in carbon reduction funds in 23 and 24. So those potentially, I sent out an email a while ago about this, but those funds could go to the Bayfront and Cranberry intersection in case there is an inflation issue with the construction cost estimate, and that one needs more money. And also the Mill Creek Trail project, extending the trail up Peninsula Drive, because Peninsula is being repaved on the tip already, and Mill Creek Township has a project to extend the trail. So those are two locations for that $1 million that they could go next. But I can turn it over to Courtney to discuss the particulars of the actual fiscal constraint charts.
Yes, so the top one's yes, okay, so the first one will not require any action by this committee or by the coordinating committee necessarily. We're looking at meeting the needs of Zook Road from the low bid plus inspection results that we received when we let the project. And we're using CRP to fill that, that need for the different aspects of that project. The one that we are going to need a vote on is the one for the French Street Bikeway. It was on the 2019 and the 2021 tip. However, because no funds were actually spent on the project yet, even though it was on the tip, we are required to vote to add it back on. We can't just do an administrative action and add it back on. The only difference, based on a conversation I had earlier with the city, that we would like to ask that we would make a change on that FC chart before it goes to the coordinating committee, that would move the carbon reduction funds that we are putting on that project from 23-24 to fund it in 25-26 and carry that over onto the new tip, and use the $350,000 in carbon reduction funds from 23-24 that we were proposing to put on it. We would in turn put that towards the Bayfront instead of using 25-26 because of concerns for the want to wait to move forward on that project until Green Garden is completed and to do a full public involvement period. So that would be the ask of the change, correct? Would just be that we would ask to add that on 25-26 instead of leaving it in 23-24. And I would send you a new FC chart to go to the coordinating committee in September.
And so we would, you'd be asking us for a vote to recommend that change to the coordinating committee.
Yes.
I would accept a motion to do so.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
thank you. Do we have any discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. I think, did that,
Well, so, and just real quick, Emily, before, I don't know what necessarily we were all going to talk about on item C under that. But what I wanted to lead into that with is with the e-ballot that we are going to be doing for the Bayfront, you will see that the 25, 26, and part of the 27, because the funding has changed, carbon reduction funds on the Erie tip are put towards the Bayfront. That would be, and that's what I'll be, that's what will be with the e-ballot. The difference being that if we receive any August redistribution funds that allows for carbon reduction over the next 2 years, we could see that decrease. So we would be looking at potential of having carbon reduction funds that we would want to set up, what sort of process we want to use to allocate those funds on projects starting in 2027 instead of 2025. We are waiting statewide for a policy to be issued. There is a statewide committee that is looking at the carbon reduction funds and the funding that is being allocated. Erie in our district is the only one that will be getting the urban carbon reduction funds as well as the formula-based carbon reduction funds. Northwest and Mercer will only be getting the formula-based, but because of the census numbers for Erie, they're also going to be, you will also be getting an urban pot, an additional pot of carbon reduction funds. We are hoping before the 2025 TIP comes into effect that we have that policy that we can use to determine, what the priorities statewide are for carbon reduction funds and what type of projects they would like to see that being spent on and what the requirements will be. I foresee it being somewhat similar to what CMAQ was back in 27, before the 2019 TIP, I think is when we lost our CMAQ funding. But before that, you had to do an actual application to use the CMAQ funds on a project so that you could show that the air quality conformity matched the requirements of that funding. I foresee something similar to that coming out with the carbon reduction. It may not be as in-depth of an analysis as the CMAQ was, but I think that there will be an application style, or at least a form that needs to be filled out for projects. So as we move forward, we're going to want to think about as a planning partner, what type of projects we want to prioritize, if we want to look at different uses for the formula-based carbon reduction funds versus the urban carbon reduction funds, and thinking as we look forward that probably 26, 27 is when we would see those funds that we'd be able to start putting on other projects beyond the $1 million that you mentioned in 24. I didn't know if you had anything else, Emily.
Actually, well, I think that covers it very well, Courtney. Yeah, especially if we're not going to be really seeing these funds. Over the 4 years, we do have $5,221,000 of this carbon reduction funds. So hopefully in those outer years, we'll actually be able to program some of this new funding source on projects, depending on how the Bayfront impacts this. So I think having some local priorities in place is great, but at this point, I think we can wait for the state to produce their strategy, the official climate action plan that the state is doing. So we can build off of them and what they're doing there. So hopefully that'll come out later this year. Have you gotten any updates on where that is? Okay.
Hey, Emily.
Mhm.
We had that meeting with Eli online about potential projects in the area in our Creek. And then I had a follow-up conversation with him. He wanted to expound a little bit more on the two that we didn't touch on real quick, or we touched on very briefly. One being Station Road 430, the repaving of it. Would these funds possibly be able to kind of expand a project, because the pedestrian access from like Barron down to the Buffalo Road commercial corridor is very limited. You get to the Logan House on Station Road and then there's a disconnect for about maybe a half mile. So that kind of to allow for a bicycle path.
I think we're running off him, unless that went down again.
That's what we're looking at in other areas.
Yeah, I think we should still be good.
Yeah.
Oh, the owl. This is an interesting meeting today. Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 26, 26.
Okay.
No, we didn't lose the computer.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, the Alice. Oh, I think we're on the,
What the right of way is like out there, so that
We actually, there was a.
Same as
right
here,
of
okay,
way.
yeah, the owl should be
Along-
working, okay.
It was
Okay.
almost- it
We're good.
wasn't
We just
paper
gotta
street.
screen
It was
share again, I
Something
think.
along Station Road.
Oh, I'm sorry, we are.
A little bit of a length, and I think it went to sheriff's sale or warden's quarters. We purchased it, because there was somebody from Pittsburgh that was interested in it. And we thought, no, we're gonna grab that just in case.
That's great.
So, yeah. maybe we can Offer it up for the project.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
Okay, I think we're back again, everybody. Sorry about that, everyone. We had another power blip. I guess then moving on, item 7, the 25-28 TIP project list. Not that she's not had enough to do so far, but I'll turn it back over to Courtney again.
We like to keep things moving quickly here. So I had attached so that if anyone had any questions, the financial guidance, I know we had talked about it. I'm going to go a little bit fast, so hopefully we don't lose everything again. There are financial guidance information from the current 25 TIP was attached. That's what's up right now. That just tells you how much money the Erie region is getting over the next 12 years by funding type. So you can keep scrolling. Oh, go up. Okay, yep, there you go. So as a continuous improvement kind of an idea, we are constantly playing with how we're, sharing the tip to try to make it so that it shares as much useful information with everybody, gives you guys as much of what you are looking for, but also is as easy to understand as we can try to make it. So this year, when we did this tip, this next document is just roadway projects. It's just looking at these next 2 pages are just the projects that we are looking at. That would be a resurfacing, betterment, or a safety signal type of a project, not our bridge projects. I removed the project funding. So this year, historically, as a part of the estimating process that Brian had mentioned, we would come up with what our estimate was this year for a project. We would add a little bit for what we would consider to be inflation, and we would put it out on the tip in the outer years. This year we did it. We looked at every project with what the cost would be in today's dollars, and then with what year we looked at programming it, we added 3% per year inflation to try to make sure that we were accounting for any kind of increase that we would see on any sort of these projects. We also used a middle amount for our estimating that would be in the middle between what a resurfacing project would cost and what a betterment project would cost. So we met in the middle and we used that amount. So hopefully as we go forward with these projects, we don't see massive swing between increases and decreases when we get them out to bid. On the document, and we can share it after we leave today, the blue underlined numbers on the left will actually take you, if you have the PDF document, will take you to our one map and show you the exact location of the project. So it will allow you to see exactly from what segment to what segment on the road we are looking at doing the project, so that you guys can see that in real time as you have questions, and you're not just relying on my memory of what the projects might be and where they might be located at. And then the other thing I did with the funding was I put, instead of the dollar amount we were programming, I put the year we were planning on starting. So when you see design, that is the year we are planning on starting preliminary engineering on a project. And when you see the let, that is the year that we are planning on advertising and bidding the project. So that's the layout of this particular document. As we went into developing this tip, specifically, I'm going to talk about first with roadway. What we did was we looked at what we had programmed on the 23 tip. We asked our county maintenance staff, as well as our design staff, to take a look at where we were at in the resurfacing betterment time frame of what we were looking at when roads needed to happen. And then we asked county maintenance to go out and prioritize based on, just because the data says something doesn't mean when you go out and ride the road, that's actually a good absolute picture of what that road looks like. So they prioritize that, and that's what we've used to do that. That priority column that you see in here is just what I use in order to be able to line that up with what they show me, so that if they ask me a question, I can tell them what that is. So most of our moves actually are not due to the bayfront. When you look at the pink highlighted, that shows that I'm delaying based off of the 23 tip. The delay of a project is by 1 year or more. If it's the light orange, which you can look, and 19 from Rotunda to Coons is one of those, it advanced a year. So we advanced it 1 year on the tip, and it'll be letting a year earlier than we had previously thought. So I wanted to share this with you guys at this particular meeting. I answer questions, and then you guys would be able to, we'll share the actual document. You guys can look at it. And then when we come back to the coordinating committee in September, I can answer questions on projects or on the layouts and stuff, give you time to look at it before and come with questions. And then I can be able to get you the answers if I don't have that at that September meeting. So that when we meet again, November, December, we can go over those questions that you might have. So that's the roadway. Any questions on, and I'm sorry, I know I did go fast on that, but any questions specifically?
I just wanted to say, I do think this method of presentation is a lot easier to follow. And then especially with those live links on there, I think that's going to be a great resource. So really good job.
We're trying to make it so that everyone, it's not a bunch of hubbubaloo that you're like, I don't understand what any of this means. Because 9 times out of 10, I'm the only one there that's like, yes, I can read this and understand it. Brian knows because he at one time sat in this position, but otherwise everyone else is like, I don't know what you're trying to tell me here. So we've been trying to make it easier for everybody, not just the planning partners, but everybody within PennDOT, because they don't necessarily look at this and understand it all the time. So yes, that is it. I can tell you that we don't have a lot of new projects in the next 12 years. I mean, we we're not asking to add a lot. We tried to keep as many projects, roadway that we had already out there. We may have moved them around based on some of what, the data that we've collected and stuff. So if you see something as you're looking through it and you're like, I don't understand where this came from or why it was moved, please don't hesitate. You can reach out to me between now and the September meeting, or bring those questions in September. And then if you scroll down, we can talk about bridges real quick.
So really quick, so
Yes.
just so I'm understanding,
Yes.
Courtney. So the priority numbers are from county maintenance. So for example, like SR5, SR 98 to SR 4009 is 14.
Okay.
Is that?
So, and if it helps,
Number.
I can hide that. I had left it on here so that I could see it. That's not the actual number. It's the number I assigned to it to get it in the right order. So
Okay.
priority ones on here are line items that we always put every year.
Okay.
Okay, so then there's some on here that you guys can't see that are carryovers. So I didn't put the carryovers on because we'd already, those projects are already in line and I'm cash flowing them out. So I removed those. Their priorities 1.5 in my mind because they were next on the list when I did it. So really the priority numbering, a county or the district's number 1 priority is, I think, actually number 3. Here is where it starts 1 and it goes down. Projects that we had that are no longer they were not ever maybe necessarily a county priority, but they were a signal project or a safety project that were not a asset management priority, but still a priority to the region. They're the lower numbers because then I could line those up and look at them. So the priority number really, you can kind of ignore it. It shouldn't have showed up on here, so I apologize for that. But it does at least tell you kind of, yes. So Arbuckle to Phillips was a higher priority than Wattsburg, the Wattsburg area. Like that, it will tell you that on there, but don't look at the number and think it's priority number 7. It probably was priority number 5 or
Okay.
Okay, is that okay? Yeah. Sorry.
Well, it does
I
look
missed
like-
that yesterday.
Well, it does look like we are getting 9 new tip paving projects on here. I went through this really fast this morning, and for those first 4 years, the 25 to 28, there are 9 new projects that will be added to the tip.
Yeah, they'll be advanced. Yeah,
Yes.
most of them probably should have been in the outer years of the current tip, but we've advanced them on, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll email this out after the meeting, so everyone can use the links and really delve into it.
Yes. So bridge, if you scroll down a little bit more, then you'll come up to the bridge document. So we are, one more, I think. No. Bridge, it might not have showed up. That's okay.
There it is.
Oh, right there it is. Thank you. So bridge, we didn't create links. We can. If you think that the links are useful, I can link this document as well, so that you guys can see where the exact bridge is. Instead of links, what I did was I added the BMS number, which the BMS number is just the county code, which Erie is 25, then your 4-digit SR, your 4-digit segment, and your 4-digit offset, so that you can pretty much pinpoint where the bridge is that's being worked on without necessarily seeing it on the map. We are in the process of looking over, we've had a lot of inspections that have been going on based on the new, I'm trying to think of, it's not a new process, but we had we've been redoing inspections lately. Do you have a better way of explaining what was happening with the inspections?
After the review.
Yeah, after the review,
Central office review.
central statewide.
So, so it's part of the NBIS inspection. So, basically there's a reporting process for the inspection priorities that is causing us to go out and taking a closer look at some bridges that exhibit criteria that raises some concern from an inspection standpoint. Is that?
Yes, thank you. So because of that, we are not quite as firmed up on the entire 12-year tip for the bridges. We're getting pretty close on the first 4. And now the bridge unit is working on years 5 through 12. So what you're looking at here in the yellow from 25 to 28, that's looking to be pretty much set. You know, we might be tweaking some things here or there, but when you're looking at years 29 through 36, we're still reviewing to make sure that those are in the order in which they need to be for the inspections and what data we've been getting. The other thing that I wanted to add is we are keeping we kept the local bridge line item, the same amount that we had on the 23 tip. So we're leaving that to be able to program local bridges. We also are keeping the local federal aid route line item, the same amount. And we are looking at the 250,000 state or safety line item. We're also looking at leaving that on there. And then we are looking at adding an on-call bridge repair contract that would allow, as an inspection comes in, if they find a higher priority repair that needs to happen and the county maintenance staff doesn't have the capacity to be able to go out and do it, we can have this contractor come out and fix that and take care of that backlog of those priorities that are coming that we just haven't been able to handle with current contracts. So we are looking at adding that to this tip as well at roughly $500,000 a year. So that's also on here. Any questions?
Okay, Courtney, on the one map,
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there a place that you can enter the MPMS number?
Yes.
So, you know, if
Yes.
anybody is interested in
Yeah.
where one of those bridges are, you could go to the one map and
Yes.
just punch that number in.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, there might even be a way that you could almost put in the bridge number and it might also tell you where that location is and the information on that particular bridge. But if you do put in the MPMS number on one map, it will tell you where it's located. It'll tell you the estimated costs of it and the work that is anticipated to occur on the structure or on the roadway project.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I think these are great, between this and the newsletter and that has been redesigned and everything, just kind of shows the willingness to dumb it down for us in a way. It really, it's great.
So, as I said, if anyone has any questions or anything comes up, you don't have to wait until the September coordinating committee meeting. Go ahead and shoot me an email with any questions that you guys might have. I'll work on finding that. If I don't have it when you guys email me, I'll either get it to you or we can talk about it in September. Or feel free to bring your questions in September and we can talk about it then as well. I didn't want to bore you guys 2 meetings in a row, more than I had to.
Do we know where we're at with that bridge on Edinburgh Road over I-90 as far as the completion date?
That's at 99.
99, yeah.
I don't, but I can follow up with you.
That's all right.
No, and that's not a problem. So that's the other question. If you guys have any, construction wasn't able to make it to this meeting, so if you guys have any project-specific questions, come let me know at the end and I will have Nate and them follow up with you guys afterwards. That's not a problem. They had to go out and look at a couple projects today.
Great, well, thank you, Courtney, very much. Moving on to other business. First, we have the district update project newsletter from Mark Nicholson.
Thank you. We can just go start at the top. Again, just focusing on the newsletter that's attached to the handout. I think we've covered the Central Bayfront project pretty well. Unless anybody has anything they want to add or comment on, we can move on down the list. Bayfront at 6th Street. We finally got the signal plans. There were some last minute changes that need to be made to the traffic signal plans. Those have recently been approved. And the goal is to try to advertise tomorrow. So we're still shooting for the September 14th let date. So things are looking pretty promising there. Depot Road, not much more to add from what we had talked about the last time. We're still working through the right-of-way clearance process. We're down to 3 claims that still have to be settled. So we're working diligently through those settlements to still meet the let date of December 14th. The Front Street Bikeway project, I guess, and I talked to my project manager. There was some conversation with the city about possibly combining this with the Green Light Go project. That's still yet to be finalized or decided upon. So other than that, I think the priorities have largely been on the Green Garden project up to this point. So I don't think we have a whole lot more to add to this one right now, unless Leanne, there was anything else. Okay. Jordan Road over I-90. This project's in preliminary design. We did recently approve the line and grade and the TSNL submissions, and I think the consultant is working on evaluating the right-of-way needs right now. So they'll be working towards finalizing the right-of-way, at least the preliminary right-of-way plan here soon. The plan is to be out for a public meeting and do our public involvement later this year. This, just so folks know, this is over I-90. It's near the Barron campus. And this is scheduled to be a replacement, shooting for next June of 24 for letting. I would anticipate construction would be in 25. 20 B15, this is a rehabilitation project, Route 20 over 20 Mile Creek. Just completed a bridge inspection to help identify the bridge needs for the project. There's been some concrete testing that's been going on to evaluate chloride contaminations in the bridge deck. I think the consultant's working towards the TSNL submission, which we should see here later this year. Last one is 19. This is the Peach Street from Oliver to Rotunda Drive. This project is just scoped to be largely a pavement resurfacing contract. We recently scoped this about a month or two ago. We're just trying to get this thing off the ground. Not a whole lot to report on this time. Should be a pretty straightforward project to deliver since it's just largely a pavement resurfacing contract. Still shooting for March let. One thing I think,
That's gonna be a melon pay.
yeah, mill and pave, yep. Any other questions on that? I had one other to talk about. Just Niemeyer, I think we had talked about this a little bit earlier. We did rebid that project when the bids came in earlier this year. They were pretty significantly high. We rebid that. We did have a cost savings of $600,000 or $700,000 from the initial bid. So the plan is to move forward with that project, so. Conrad? Yeah, we can. The other project that we're working on, it's not on the newsletter, I believe, is the I-79 bridges that are over the rail lines just before you come into the city of Erie. Recently, we had done some testing on that bridge deck. You may have heard about some lane closures and such that we had up there. We've had a lot of failures on that bridge deck with some spalling and potholing in recent years that Jim's crews have been out there trying to hold that together. The results of that testing have revealed that there is a lot of advanced deterioration happening in that concrete, very high amount of chloride contamination. Some previous testing had confirmed that there was a condition called ASR that was present in the bridge, and all of this is pointing towards the need for us to replace that bridge deck in its entirety. So we recently submitted a request to central office to program the funds for that. Do you remember what the estimate off the top of your head that we were? No, I don't. 30 to 50 million.
Thought it was closer to 50, yeah.
Yeah. So,
which looks like it is going to be approved very soon. So that's something that we're excited about.
So that's a project that you'll probably start seeing on the newsletter here in the future. I think the plan is right now is to look at a 2025 letting, depending on when in 2025 will dictate when construction will actually begin. If it's towards the end, it'll probably go in 26. If we're able to get it through the process sooner, earlier in 25, we may be able to start construction in, but that's something that we'll provide updates as we go along. But that's a significant bridge in our district. It's one of the largest that we have on our system. So how old is that? That bridge was built in the early 80s. So it's 40 years.
Where is it again?
This is the I-79 bridge over the Conrail track. So it's just south of the 12th Street exit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one. A lot of traffic. It had a de-icing system on it for a number of years, and which I think led to that high chloride contamination. So we tried to do some waterproofing on it back about 15 years ago, and I think the damage had been done. If the waterproofing didn't hold up very well, I think it's just time. So, any other questions?
No, thank you, Mark, very much. Next would be federal updates. Ronique, if you were still here with us after all of our hiccups.
Hi, everybody. Sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. I will follow up with you guys on the federal planning updates. I have a slew of them. I'll share a couple of highlights with you, but I will also follow up with Emily to kind of share everything widely, because there's links, there are important dates and stuff like that. But one thing that I will share, you guys are probably aware, but recently, USDOT announced the second year of the SMART grants funding, and this program will fund demonstration projects focused on advanced smart community technologies and systems. So the NOFO is out. There's also an upcoming webinar on that grant coming up on August 17th. Another one that I wanted to announce is the NOFO of the Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods grant program. That deadline isn't until September, but I have a lot of links here to the notice of funding opportunity and some more information on that program. There's a lot of application deadlines approaching for the other discretionary grant opportunities. I have a slew of them listed here. One thing that I wanted to mention, aside from the grants, is that the USDOT, like a couple weeks ago, launched a new project delivery toolbox for transportation infrastructure investments. I know during the meeting we were kind of talking about bid estimates and the challenges of meeting those estimates. But this toolbox will help to it has best practices across the USDOT and kind of serves as a repository for project delivery information and resources over 8 different topic areas, which also includes pre-construction considerations, risk management, equity considerations, and project management. So I think this will be a good resource for the MPO and for PennDOT to tap into to kind of see what's in that project delivery toolbox to see if it can kind of augment all of the tools that you guys already use for project delivery and estimates. We also have a collection of resources on electric bike trends. We have some reports on pedestrian safety and electric vehicle charging strategies. So I have links to all of those. This is kind of just a high level overview. So yeah, I'll send these out to Emily, and if at any time at all you guys want to receive these in advance so you guys can kind of digest the information and have any questions for me, when the meeting actually occurs, I can definitely provide the info ahead of time if I have it. But of course, don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions in between then. So that's all I have. I wanted to kind of give a brief summary, kind of rapid fire, but those are the new things that are coming out. So yeah, thank you for your time, and this was a good meeting. Definitely going to keep my eye out for some of those amendments coming through. So yeah, I appreciate your time.
Well, no, that's great, Ronnie. Thank you very much. Sounds like a lot of good info, and I'm sure Emily will send that around to everybody when she gets it. So thank you for those updates.
Great, no problem.
Next, PennDOT Central Office updates. Brandon, if you're still with us.
I am. Sorry. Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Okay, great. So just a couple updates to share on the PennDOT side, and like with Ronique, I'll also send more of a standard format over to Emily so she can share with the TAC after following the meeting. But just a few highlights to touch on. And I know Courtney touched on a little bit with the carbon reduction program update, which I think she was referring to the carbon reduction strategy the state is working on or looking to develop a statewide strategy document. Just an update that there's a working draft document for the what we call the CRS that was distributed to the work group and at the end of July, and the work group is under review right now. And we're still on track to submit the final draft then to FHWA by the November 15th deadline, November 15th of this year. And as Courtney touched on a little earlier, this document will then help act as a guide on how we're approaching carbon reduction strategies at a statewide level. So we do have the carbon reduction funding currently on the tips now that we can put on eligible projects, but this idea is to have more of a systematic approach in the future. So stay tuned for more developments with that. Just to touch on the Transportation Alternative Set Aside or TASA round, as you probably know, that this closed the draft application deadline, was extended to July 21st. So that is now passed, but we do have roughly at this point 150 draft applications that were successfully submitted, and 50 that are still under review. So all in all, we'll probably have about 200 of those that the team will be looking through. And if all updates remain unchanged, the final application will still be due on September 15th. So if you're in the process of doing those are the timelines you have to look at. And as always, Justin Cambrick in my office is the main point of contact for that if you do have any questions. And I'll have his information in the follow-up then with Emily as well. And I think the last thing I wanted to touch on was the NEVI formula program update. As you may know, on round 1 of the NEVI program closed on May 5th of this year, and scoring applications are currently underway. PennDOT Central Office anticipates that we can award announcements for round 1 later this summer, possibly early fall of this year. And round 2 program details will be anticipated to come out around the same time. And that focus will be on building out the remaining interstate highway alternative fuel corridor gaps, or we call them AFCs, and looking also at non-interstate alternative fuel corridors. So that being said, are there any questions I can touch on?
No, there doesn't seem to be, Brandon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. And again, great information. And if you pass that on to Emily, I'm sure she'll circulate it to everybody else.
Will do. Thank you.
Last 2 items under other business look like they are information about meetings. Emily, do you want to kind of update us on those 2 meetings?
Yes, just very quickly, there's a vulnerable road user meeting for the northwest section of Pennsylvania, August 29th from 10 a.m. till noon. And there's also an East Side Active Transportation Study public meeting August 15th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Port Authority, which I have a little flyer in there for. That's all I have.
Great. Well then, interest of time, we'll move on to hearing of the public. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a couple questions. Sorry for the time, but we're only together once every 3 months. The project over at the, over on the west side of Erie, down by the, the yacht club.
The Cockle Bridge.
Yeah. How's that progressing?
They are in final design at this point, and a public meeting number 2 is scheduled for October. So it's still on track to the schedule that we've had for pretty much since last year.
Okay, I was just curious. We put a lot of time in on that. Second one is in Union City. Great job down there. But at the light at the railroad tracks, there's a tremendous amount of confusion now on that light, because when you're coming west, turns this way, you can go straight or you can turn left. Well, it always was that was a yield around the corner. Now it's very confusing because there's no turn on red, and I was observing that intersection about 2 weeks ago. And, a semi pulls up, there's no traffic anywhere, and he sits there, or backing traffic up down the road. And this has happened with cars too. The only thing I'm asking is maybe look at that is it a yield or not? Even in my mind, I don't know. Am I doing wrong when I turn right when there's no traffic coming? Or do you not want traffic to turn right there? I just want you to have that on your radar. And thirdly, I always judge how well PennDOT's doing by the complaints I get and by how much I'm held up coming to Erie. You guys are doing a fantastic job of holding me up right now, which is a compliment because the roads are looking really great. And you're really doing a great job on maintenance on the roads. Union City is gorgeous now. A lot of complaints, but now people aren't going to complain. And I was stopped by one of your people out on Route 89, tar and chipping on the massive amount of roads. And the nicest guy, on the stop, explaining what was happening. And so, you've been out employees, that's really nice. So I just want to give you a couple of kudos that our area is looking really good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I can answer the Union City signal, because I think you and I actually
Yeah,
talked about it the
awesome.
last meeting, Dave. So you're talking about if you're coming from Union City and you're at the intersection where
We're
the
coming
Rite
from
Aid,
Corey
yeah,
to Union
to
City.
Union City, and you want to turn right.
Right.
So, I believe there's not a no right turn on red sign
No, there
there.
isn't any signage.
Correct. So it is, so Pennsylvania is you can turn right on red unless there's a sign that says no. So any car that goes up to there can turn right on red as long as there's no traffic coming. There's no signs that they can put that say
Yeah.
right turn on red allowed.
Yeah.
So as long as there's not a no turn on red, which that intersection doesn't have, cars and trucks can turn right on red there.
Good, good. It just, people are getting used to it.
Yep.
You
Oh,
did a
yeah.
great job on the intersection.
It's different.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak? All right, then, hearing none, just a reminder that the next meeting of the MPO is the coordinating committee meeting on September 13th at 10 a.m. Also a reminder that there will be an e-ballot going out if any of us are members of the coordinating committee or represent organizations that have coordinating committee members. Please make sure you impress on them how important it is to take that vote. So with that, I will call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, we are adjourned at 11:35.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm amazed that happened.
Stop recording.